I'd like to call to order, please, the Board of Education meeting for Saline Area Schools for November 8th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. If everyone could all please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for being here. Just a short message up front tonight. Tonight is Secretary Jones's last evening with us on our Board of Education. So, of course, I wanted to start the meeting by pausing and thanking Candace for all of her contributions. You will be missed, and you are a valued member of the team, and I'm sure other trustees will have lots to say about you in their comments as well. But I wanted to make sure to say up front that you'll be missed. You are very welcome. Also wanted to say that the polls are open until 8 p.m. Please, please, please go vote. You can always watch us on live stream later. This is our first opportunity, please, for public comment. A member of the public may address the board briefly for up to 3 minutes or request to be scheduled on the agenda of a future meeting. Please note that students will be given priority to speak on any topic. The first public participation portion of the meeting will be limited to 1/2 hour, 30 minutes, and limited to agenda items. A second public participation portion will be offered at the end of the agenda to allow for any other comment. The presiding officer is guided by the rules set forth in Policy 167.3, which has been reprinted on the public comment form collected this evening. Individuals addressing the board should take into consideration the rules of common courtesy. The public participation portion of the meeting cannot be used to make personal attacks against a board member, district employee, or student. And speaking of students, I'm very excited to say that we have a public comment form from 2 individuals. Dylan and Dom, would you like to come forward? Hi. All right, so you're just gonna approach the podium. You can pull the mic down so it's right at your mouth. You wanna be a couple inches away and just push the button. And when you see the green light, you'll be ready to go. And just so you know, Secretary Jones right there has 2 cards. So you get 3 minutes to speak. When you're almost done, around 30 seconds left, she'll hold up a yellow card if you're still speaking. And then at the 3 minutes, she'll hold up the red card and you can just complete your thought and you'll be all set. So welcome, whenever you're ready.
Hello, my name is Dylan Cox. This is my friend, Dom Vina. We were both 7th grade students at the Saline Middle School, and today we want to present to you why we think that the fall break a week prior to Halloween should be moved to the day after Halloween.
Okay, so my name is Dom Vina, and at the middle school, we had a little issue to deal with. November 1st, the day after Halloween, students would come in tired, and that would help them not focus. Well, I mean, it wouldn't let them focus. They would be tired all day. They would not focus. That means they cannot learn. So to learn better, me, Dylan, and a few other friends decided that we would create a petition that we got the teachers and students alike to sign to try to get November 1st off. And the reason we thought about this was because it would be a lot more efficient, because the teachers have said that they've been trying to get November 1st off for a while now.
Now, we think that this could help a lot of families and benefit a lot of people, including the admin or teachers, just giving you an extra day off after having like a nice night out with your kids if you have any, or just having a nice day off, relaxing. You won't have chaotic students bringing candy, creating more messes and sugar rushes, trading with other kids. It's just not a good time. But with the Tuesday off or the day after Halloween off, that could create a lot of benefits for students and families alike.
And another reason that we decided this would be a good day, because students are so tired from staying up late that a lot of them don't come for the most part anyways. Like sometimes on November 1st, we'll have some days where there won't be that many students in class because they all went and stayed home because they're so tired from staying up late with their buddies.
That's not good. We need to have good attendance rates.
Yes, because the attendance rates affect our school attendance, and that could be bad for us.
Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. And that was Dylan Cox and Dom Vina.
Good night.
Thank you, gentlemen. Can you turn around? I think you might have a couple of really proud parents who might want to get a picture of you in front of the podium. Oh, they're taking a video, okay. Thank you. It's because that is an operational thing, we are going to recommend that to Dr. Lotch for any additional follow-up, if he would like to do that.
It has been an honor talking to you tonight. Thank you for letting us come up here.
Yes.
Thank you both.
And also, we actually have our principal, Miss Chekowitz. She has actually been trying to do this for almost 10 years now.
Okay, considering she just became the principal in August, that's interesting. But so she was trying to do this at Woodland Meadows before.
Yes.
Ah, I get it. Okay, all right, excellent. You're from Woodland Meadows?
No, we are from Saline Middle School.
Oh no, I mean you went to Woodland Meadows for your elementary school.
No.
No,
Oh.
for elementary school, I went to Pleasant Ridge, and Dylan, you went to?
I went to Childs Elementary, part of the Lincoln District.
Okay, all right, very very good. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's
Thank
been
you.
an honor.
Thank you very much. What a nice way to start out a meeting. Extended public comment, Tammy, I saw you come in, so come on up whenever you're ready. So you get, I know you're probably not going to take the up to 15 minutes, but you have up to 15 minutes to speak, and Candace will show you the yellow when you're 1 minute out, if you're still speaking, and then she'll show you the red at 15 minutes, so you can just complete your thought, and whenever you're ready.
Okay, I definitely won't take that long, and that is very hard to follow. So nice job, boys. I just really wanted to say thank you. After our Run Tough for Chad Tough event this year, the Saline school system has been so supportive of us over the years, and wanted to let everyone know that we raised over $400,000 at this year's event. And Saline is a huge part of the reason that the Chad Tough Defeat DIPG Foundation is now the largest research foundation for DIPG in the world. So I think that that is something that this community should be very proud of. It started here. This was Chad's home. It will always be Chad's home. And this will always be family. And the Run Tough event is what really launched the foundation. It started with a group of families who said, we want to do something to help the Carr family when we were struggling and we weren't sure what was coming up. And we turned that effort into a foundation, which has thus become the largest research foundation in the world. So I just want to thank the Saline school system in general for all of the support. I know people go out of their way to make that weekend work for us, and it's truly making an impact. We are going to be giving out over $7 million in research funds this year. And, you know, doctors are saying there will be a cure in our lifetime, which they wouldn't have said 7 years ago. So we're approaching what will be Chad's 7-year anniversary. And it's a difficult time, but it's always a blessed time seeing things like this that happen in this community that move the needle forward. So that's all. I just wanted to thank you guys very much for all the support.
Thanks, Tammy. It's always a wonderful birthday remembrance for him. Appreciate you. Response to previous public comment, just to remind everyone that you can reach all of us at sasboard@salineschools.org or through Let's Talk. Moving on to revisions or approval of the agenda, items may be added or deleted from the meeting agenda, and or the order of items may be changed at the request of an individual board member or the superintendent. The agendas must be approved before proceeding further. I'd like to please entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
So moved, Miller.
Jenny, thank you.
Support, McVeigh.
Michael, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 7-0. Moving on to our student showcase, Saline High School National Honor Society. If you would all like to approach Carson, Sia, Molly, Gregor, Andre, and Kaylee with your advisors, Zach and Bill. Are they here too?
They are not, I don't think.
Maybe they're voting, so
Yeah.
excellent, excellent.
Yes.
Actually, I did see one of them posted that he voted earlier today. Excellent. So if the green light's still on, whenever you're ready to get started, I think you know how to do it.
Hi everyone. We are a National Honor Society. It's just the 3 of us officers right now. We're missing a few. Yes. Do I just need to be closer? Yeah, just like 2 inches away. Okay. Yeah, so we're some of the officers and we're missing the rest. And we have a presentation. I'm not sure. Okay. Okay, so I guess we could just talk about it. So we want to go through each committee. National Honor Society is separated into 4 committees, and it just helps us focus on each of the different outreach projects that we do. I will talk about Blood Drive Committee first. I was a member of the Blood Drive Committee last year, and this year I oversee it as the president of National Honor Society. And we focus on doing blood drives every trimester. We've already had 3 so far. We had one just before Halloween, and then we had 2 over the summer. It's really a really good opportunity for students to be able to donate and for us to connect with the community, because as being someone who checks people in, it's really like exciting to talk to people that are donors and have donated for a long time, and it's a cool experience. And as well as checking in, we give students at NHS opportunities to make sure that the donors are okay afterwards and give them food and snacks. And yeah, it's really cool for our members to see the process of a blood drive. It's really important to help save lives. And yeah, so.
So I'll be talking about the Community Outreach Committee, which actually has a lot of upcoming events, especially during the winter time. So one thing that we have going on in the next couple of weeks is the Veterans event. It's actually something new that we started in the past year, and it was started by a student in NHS who has a grandparent who's a veteran. So basically what we do is that we have a bunch of veterans who volunteer come in of all different ages, who enlisted and like served at very different times, and we break off in little groups, and we NHS students act as their tour guide and take them to several different classrooms so they can share their experience as veterans and let students know what it entails going into the military and like what they did in their different branches. And it's super great around enlistment time, especially for seniors who want that experience and want a firsthand account. And like also it's just great knowing what their stories are and hearing about it, even as somebody who isn't in the military, because I think we can all give them a lot more appreciation than they get. So that's one thing that we have coming up in the next week. And then we also do shoveling for senior citizens in the wintertime. As we all know, living in Michigan, there is a lot of snow. So a lot of times senior citizens either can't afford it or can't go outside to do it themselves. So NHS students step up and do that for them. We break off in groups of 3 or 4, and we go to these senior citizens' houses and just shovel their driveways and sidewalks so that affordability isn't hindering their safety. We think that's such a huge, important thing, and we obviously don't want any accidents during the winter. So that's a great outlet for them to reach out to us through that. And then the last thing that community outreach is doing right now is tutoring. So I actually just got recently linked with a student at SHS who needed help with tutoring, taking an honors English class. And it's really great to have that community of people like me who took those classes be able to help the younger kids. And we do it for elementary and middle school students too. And they just send out forms. The Community Outreach Committee sends out forms to students who are interested who can sign up for what they're comfortable tutoring, so that students who either can't afford it or like need that extra help can get it in a quick and easy manner. And we have so many students volunteering right now. We actually have like too many students who want to volunteer and not enough people who are being tutored. So that's great to have. And we do that for the whole year, not just this trimester.
So I'll be talking about the fundraising committee. Given the nature of the organization, it's a lot of service, so we don't need a large amount of funds like some other organizations, but we do need some, obviously, to keep running. So one of our biggest ways that we get funds is through flower sales at Christmas and Easter. It's just a good way to kind of spread the seasonal joy and also just help us out a little bit. Our second thing that we do to raise money would be upcoming is at Thanksgiving. We sell Thankful for You cards. It's expected to make a decent amount. And then also through our member dues, we make money. Not all that money goes to us. It also goes to the national chapter to help support other chapters throughout the United States.
And the last committee that I'm going to talk about is community drives. And I'm sure if you live in Saline, you've seen some of the stuff from community drives. One of the most important events that we do is the canned food drive. We go out and put labeled bags around the community at their houses. And we come back later and collect cans and food that can be taken to the food services at Saline. And it's just a really great way to give back to our community, it's a mandatory event, so we get a lot of participation, and it's been very successful in the past and has been able to feed a lot of families in Saline. And we also do the backpack drive, which is a drive for school supplies. It's a similar idea. We do bags at people's houses and ask them to put any extra supplies or supplies that they've bought. It can be anything from pencils to tape to anything that anyone would use. And then the NHS students, it's also a mandatory event. We buy a bunch of backpacks and we fill each one of them and we give them out to the community. It depends sometimes we switch up the different places we give them to, but it's just to give supplies to students who can't afford them, and it's really great to see all the involvement from the chapter and from the community. And and that's kind of all we have. We just wanted to update the board on what we've been doing, and it's been great to get back into the normal ritual of NHS activities, and we're really excited for the upcoming events.
Thank you very much. It's always good to have the two of you back. And Gregor, right? And congratulations on being homecoming king, I think. Is that right? Okay, I thought I remembered the picture. And I think you just heard Mrs. Carr talk. And I mean, there's a wonderful service opportunity, perhaps around Run Tough or other things in the with that organization. And I see Principal Deneen over there, and I'm sure that she can find you more students to tutor too. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah, Jenny.
I was just thinking as you were talking about one of the community outreach. So we live out in the country, so we don't often get the bags on our porch, which is completely fine because why would you come out and spend all that time for 10 houses? So I was wondering if you had considered, I know Saline Area Social Services takes online donations. And so for some people who might forget to fill their bag or who might not have a bag on their porch, if you had considered adding a component for online donations, either directly through Saline Area Social Services, maybe with they could denote somewhere on there that it was to support NHS, or maybe even through RevTrack or something like that.
Yeah. Our year hasn't. I don't know about the previous years, but I don't think we've considered doing online donations, but that's a great idea. I'm sure we would love to do that. Definitely a good resource for people that don't get bags or want to donate later, because people do forget about it. We'll definitely look into that and see how we can collaborate with the Saline Area Social Services to do that.
Great,
Yes.
great. And Gregor, I was going to ask you, did you have Mrs. Marshall for a teacher? I think I remember
Yeah, I did.
you. I think I remember you next door. It's funny to see you all grown up. So congratulations on your time at NHS.
I don't know if you know this information, but when is the next blood draw?
I could give you, I don't have it right now, but I'm sure I could email you the date. I don't know at the top of my head, but it should be near the end of the next trimester, but I can send you the actual date of it.
I'll just keep my eyes open for it. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
sounds good.
For the tutoring services, I heard you say that there were more tutors than students. Is that right? That are interested in being tutored. So I'm curious about the ways in which you let families know that this service is available.
So we actually have a form that students and families can fill out, like giving us their contact information. So what happened for me was that somebody who is specifically in charge of those forms in the outreach committee emailed me saying, hey, if you're interested in tutoring this student in this subject, I'll give you their family's contact information, and then I coordinate with them directly.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. You are very welcome to stay, but you are very welcome to go if you have homework and other things as well. Thank you. I know, right?
2 for 2 for
Moving on to our only scheduled report of the evening, our audit report from Plant Moran. If you'd like to come up. Just make sure the green light is on. And welcome back.
Sorry. There we go. So yes, so again, my name is Jeff Higgins. I'm a partner with Plant Moran. We're the district's independent CPA firm, here to talk about the results of the audit for the district's year ended June 30th, 2022. So you would have received with your packets, there's 3 documents related to our audit of the financial statements. So there's the financial report with supplemental information, which contains the district's audited financial statements. There's a separate federal award supplemental information, which represents our separate audit of the federal programs administered by the district. And finally, there's the report to the Board of Education, which provides additional information about the audit process itself. So as the district's independent auditors, it's our responsibility to render an opinion on the financial statements which are prepared by the management of the district. And in order to render that opinion, we have to perform our audit procedures in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America. And based on the results of those procedures, I'm happy to report here tonight that we've rendered what's known as an unmodified or a clean opinion on the district's financial statements. So that would represent the highest level of assurance that we can provide on a set of financial statements. So we're going to go through some of the highlights of the general fund. It's important to keep in mind that the activities of the district are recorded in various different funds just to show how the particular expenditures of the related to various revenue sources are used. Our presentation focuses on the general fund, as that's the primary operating fund of the district. In the slide that we see here, this is the balance sheet of the general fund as of June 30th, 2022. You can see there was total assets in the general fund of roughly $22.7 million, primarily comprised of cash of about $10.6 million and receivables of about $11.4 million. Included in that receivable number is about $8.6 million due from the state of Michigan for the July and August state aid payments. So I bring that up because it just creates some cash management issues for districts all across the state. It's important to keep in mind that the state aid the district received is paid in 11 installments, with the first installment beginning in October, and that goes all the way through the following August, which essentially means that 18% of the state aid received by the district is actually received after the end of your fiscal year end. So again, it just creates cash management challenges for districts, and that's, every district throughout the state's under that same payment schedule. On the liability side, you can see total liabilities of about $12.5 million as of June 30th, which the largest component of that would be wages and benefits related to employees who are paid over the summer months. That's primarily teachers. So teachers have fulfilled their obligations as of June 30th, but because they are paid over the summer months, we are required to report those wages to be paid over that period as a liability as of June 30th. The difference then between the assets of $22.7 million and liabilities of $12.5 million would be our fund balance of about $10.2 million. And we'll talk about that here in a couple more minutes, but first we want to take a look at some of the components of the income statement side of the equation. This next graph represents the general fund revenue for the year ended June 30th, 2022 and 2021. You can see as of 2022, there was total revenue of about $68.6 million. The majority of that, as you can see, is related to state revenue, which the biggest component of that would be the foundation allowance. So again, the majority of districts' revenue is through the foundation allowance. So for Saline Schools, for example, that was $8,700 per student for the last fiscal year. And it's a formula. It's your per pupil foundation times your blended pupil count generates the vast majority of the revenue for the district. So again, it's just important to keep in mind that when you're thinking of revenues and expenditures, school districts in the state of Michigan really have very little ability to have significant influence on the general fund revenue other than trying to manage their enrollment effectively. And you also will notice that federal revenue also this year is up pretty significantly. The majority of that would be related to the ESSER funding. Roughly $2.7 million of ESSER funding was recognized as revenue in 2022. And again, there's been significant influx of federal dollars here that have come through the last couple of years. It's important to keep in mind that most of that money, so there's now the ESSER, what's known as ESSER $3 out there, but that's really expected to be the last iteration of pandemic-related funding. So from a budget management perspective, it's just important to keep in mind that those dollars are starting to get to the end of their life, if you will. This next slide then takes a look at the general fund expenditures. You can see again in 2022 there was roughly $67 million of expenditures compared to about $60 million in 2021. So you can see salaries and wages make up the vast majority of the expenditures, which is what you would obviously expect. People costs being, the function of the district is obviously to educate students, so employee costs to be the largest component of the overall budget. And you will note again there was a $7 million increase in expenditures for 2022. The majority of that was related to an increase in instructional expenditures. Again, a lot of that's just related to pandemic funding and some of the other costs associated with dealing with some of the activities related to dealing with the federal dollars that came through and spending that in the appropriate manner. And then on that same expenditure discussion, so this is a little bit of benchmarking data for you. So this actually takes a look at the instructional expenditures per pupil for Saline and compares that to the operating expenditures per pupil. So again, instructional expenditures relate to activities dealing directly with the teaching of students in the classroom or classroom situations, and operating expenditures represent essentially all the costs of the general fund less debt service and capital outlay costs. It really just puts all the districts on a kind of an even keel, if you will. And again, you will notice that this is as of 2021. Complete data for districts isn't available yet for 2022, so we do look back last year to see how Saline compares to some of your peer districts here in the county. And you'll note that, Saline, that percentage of dollars spent in the classroom is roughly 63%, compares very favorably with your peer districts here in the county and with the county as a whole. So again, just reflective that Saline is spending a significant number of its resources on direct classroom activities. This next slide then puts together the revenues and expenditures just to take a look at what the net revenue versus expenditures has been for the last several years. It's essentially kind of like your net income for the year in the general fund. So again, the 2022 revenue was roughly $68.9 million. 2022 expenditures are about $68.1 million. So you had a net difference there of about $800,000. You can see for several years, the district was right around kind of that break-even level. 2021, obviously, there was a significant overage, and really many districts throughout the state experienced that as there was, that was essentially the pandemic year. So there's lots of additional funding starting to come into districts, but because a lot of districts still were managing sort of a hybrid or more of a remote environment, the cost didn't necessarily increase right away, and it took some time for those costs to kind of catch up with some of those funding, additional funding sources that came in. This last graph then, sort of on that same discussion, takes a look at the general fund balance. So we talked about the net overage or revenue, if you will. The net income of the district was about $800,000. So that $800,000 adds to your fund balance. Again, the fund balance is your difference between your assets and your liabilities. And really, the fund balance represents the financial reserves for the districts. It's an important metric that is really watched, and it really is a way to assess the financial strength, if you will, of any district. And fund balance, like I said, it represents the financial reserve. It really allows the district to fund unplanned expenses and also helps insulate the district against unexpected revenue losses or funding instability. So it does provide a lot of financial flexibility for districts. It is an important metric, like I said. And so then the question becomes, how much fund balance should be maintained, or how much fund balance is an adequate level. So fund balance is often assessed as a percentage of expenditures. So for example, if you take your total fund balance as of June 30th of about $10.2 million, divide that by our expenditures of $67.8 million, that gives you a percentage of about 15.1% as of June 30th, or as of, June 30th, 2022. We have some comparisons here for the last several years, and you can see where Saline, The darker blue bar compares to the state average. And again, the state average is through 2021, as that's the last year that complete data is available for. But you can see for several years, the district was, quite a ways below that state average percentage. With a significant influx in funding in 2021, you caught up somewhat. You're at about 15.6%. And again, the state average last year was about 19.3%. And it was essentially 15.1% again this year, so somewhat of a flat fund balance percentage. So again, it is an important metric. Many governmental accounting organizations recommend a fund balance percentage of anywhere between 15 and 20%. So again, it is something to keep an eye on, and especially now that the kind of the one-time funding as part of the various pandemic fundings are starting to come to an end, I would certainly encourage you to keep an eye on that number and make sure that we're keeping the appropriate level of financial reserves for the district available. So that really is a quick summary of the financial results for the year ended June 30th, 2022. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
I'll actually throw it to Treasurer Gerby first, since this is his area, and then everyone else can comment too.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Fred.
So I first of all want to thank Plant Moran for your diligence here and for discussing things with me when we were kicking things off and all of that. So I'm obviously pleased with the outcome right here. We're in a good financial position. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize the fact that this is largely in part due to Miranda Owsley, right, who is nothing short of outstanding as a finance director for this school district, and we are incredibly blessed and fortunate to have you. Okay, she also teaches me a lot. Learning about finance is a significant. It's a 48-inch sub, all right, and it's one bite at a time and trying to learn about it and all of that. But what's that? But yeah, you better be hungry. But at the same time, like, she's patient, she answers questions, and she's really helped the team to learn. And speaking of that, the finance team, thank you for letting me, quote unquote, be the chair and doing those things. We ask good questions and we figure things out for our team. There's a few things that obviously stand out for me as far as this report goes. The first thing is I'm incredibly proud of our percentage that we spend on instructional percentages, right? 63%. So, that places us competitive, if not, above our peers, right? And so if we're going to say that we're about the students, then our money and where we spend it should reflect that. And I really do think that this does reflect that. So first of all, I want to make sure that I say that out loud, okay? You should also know that the end of, as Jeff said here, the end of ESSER funds has my antenna up a little bit, okay? It's just as the person who's in charge of finance, those are some things that have been a net for us, that have helped us. But we're having continual conversations, and we need to, about our structures, about what we're spending our money on, how we're spending our money, about one-time funds that we've, had, and those kinds of things. And so I'm pleased with our 15.1% that we have as a fund balance. I think that's a strong fund balance, and it shows our commitment, our ability to be future focused. But there's also another thing I want to point out to you guys. It was on page 38. In the itemized bulletin you got, we're making a $300,000 transfer for the second year in a row into our capital funds account as well. So in addition to being able to have a 15.1% balance for instructional needs and that kind of thing, we've also been able to put aside some money for things that, for lack of a better word, aren't very sexy. Things like having to buy a dump truck. Right? Like, these are expenses that our buildings are going to have to take on. We could have a boiler go out. I mean, now I hope the bond goes through tonight, and I hope that all of those kinds of things. But I am proud of our finance team, and we are really trying to be mindful of that day where these ESSER funds may not be as available to us. So I just want to make sure the team knows, not only is it about fund balance, we're doing some other things to be financially proactive. That's a great word for it. And so that's that. And let's see, lots of funds to balance, end of ESSER funds, be prepared, instructional outcomes, pleased with the outcome. I'm good. If you guys have any questions you want to ask. So make sure I covered everything.
Do you have any questions for Jeff, or?
I do not. Sorry, I guess I just jumped into comments and thoughts, but no, I'm pleased with where this is, so thank you.
Thanks. Rest of the team? Yeah, Susan.
So I don't really, know how to phrase this. So the fund balance as it is right now, will that possibly be impacted by those one-time funds? Are there any, do we see that going down, I guess? Has that been factored into it? And I'm sure your job has been really interesting this past couple of years, figuring this out with the districts and stuff. But does that make sense?
So it does make sense, and it's really a kind of a future budgeting question. So certainly that is a significant concern of districts. These are one-time funds, and the concern is, did these funds go in and add structural pieces of our budget, which now when those funding goes away, the costs are still there. And so that is certainly a concern. And I know Celine, like most other districts, is certainly looking to make sure we're not putting in costs that are going to add structural components of the budget that then are no longer funded, and then we create some issues. So certainly, again, it's more of a discussion for budgeting processes forward, but I know it is something that, Miranda and the team are very keenly aware of, that these are one-time funds, and trying to appropriately manage it with, obviously, the board's input in terms of what's the appropriate way to handle the various ESSER funds.
I'll add on to that a little bit, Trustee Step. We at every finance committee meeting, we're really looking at a number of variables. One is enrollment, the other is the per pupil expenditure, and then the third is the fund balance. And the fourth is the one-time money. So we are talking about, for example, we have hired some additional positions with ESSER funds. When that dries up, that does change the structure. So we have to make some decisions then. Like, for example, if we had enrollment increase or a per pupil foundation allowance increases, we may be able to keep those positions and not have to change the structure. But if those things went down, we would then potentially have to make some decisions about, can we still have those positions in existence? So we are talking about that at just about every finance meeting, that give and take with the variables.
And I guess I would back that up and say, to answer your question, from a finance perspective, is there is the possibility that we may end up, in future budgets spending into our fund balance, but we're going to do the things we need to do to support instruction in the classroom, right? And we're constantly talking about those things and how do we right size and how we make sure that, but at the same time, like, would I anticipate that at some point we'll spend some of this 15%? Yeah, we just need to be mindful that we don't spend it, that there's not such a catastrophic fall off of finance that all of a sudden we're not prepared and now we're at 4% fast. So we want to be able to do things gradually, right, over time. And in a perfect world, we'll just stay at 15% forever. But it's there for us if we need it, which I like. So.
And then hopefully also we can get more funds or funds to kind of come in and help continue those positions or whatever we have. And I know with the per pupil funding, there's funds set aside for like specific things, which is really great. And then I had another question, and maybe this is Miranda, about fund balance pre-2017. Because I like to see those numbers rise, because I know we were, pretty low there. So it is nice to see it go up, regardless of those other factors. I think it makes us feel strong and look strong, and hopefully can continue that way.
Susan, what's your question that you wanted to see the fund balance pre-2017?
Yeah, I don't know that we have the numbers.
We have
here.
it. Yeah, we've reviewed it. I think the last one I saw went back to 2013. Is that right? Yeah. So we have it. We can circulate. Yeah.
In our would it be?
No, we've seen it in the finance.
Oh, you'll just send it on.
That's a long time. We have seen it.
Okay.
We can circulate, sure, with everybody.
I'm sure
We've
it's
seen it in
listed
past
our-
meetings.
In our old copies that I keep from 2016, 17, I still have that on.
I'm sure I have it too. I'll
bet.
dig it up.
Yeah, Jenny?
So one thing I am thinking about, and perhaps this isn't necessarily a Plant Moran question, but I am thinking about historically, we've had occurrences in our country, in our area, that have created long-term traumatic effects on kids. So I'm thinking of my grandparents in the World War, Depression, things like that. And so we know historically that these events, like the pandemic, can cause long-term effects for kids, and we are seeing some of that, and we've been able to put some pieces in place to provide structure and support so that all students can access an academic excellence in school. So it would, for me at least, be a time for us to be advocating for funding for these positions that have proven to be having a positive impact on our students, that it isn't going to go away in a year or two. And so advocating for long-term supports for mental health, for example, for closing academic gaps with students. So not necessarily a question for you, but for our legislature and for people who determine funding for schools. I think that it's a time to advocate for the long-term effects that a situation like a pandemic can have on student learning. But my question for you, getting back to that, as I'm looking on slide 7, which is where we see the general fund revenue over expenditures, and we see that spike, and you said a little bit about that, and it sounded like you said there was some spending ahead of funding to accommodate some of the needs during the pandemic, but then it looks like we've caught up again. Is that what that spike indicates? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, so 2021, again, it was a bit of a unique year, of course, and so the funding, so there was a relatively significant increase in the per pupil foundation allowance. And they were starting to get some of the pandemic funding coming through, but if you look at the overall costs actually incurred in that given year, they were actually pretty flat. So the cost between 2020 and 2021 really didn't change much at all. It was pretty even, but the funding started to come in, and if you think about it, again, when the pandemic hit, spring of 2020, you're already into the budget season for 2021. So again, it's probably more of a question for Miranda, but just the time it takes to start implementing some of the programs and changes and those other types of things that the district is now doing, it just takes time to get those rolling. And so given the timing of when everything seemed to hit, like I said, a lot of districts recognized a pretty significant increase in 2021. And some of it, again, was just the fact that to the extent that there was virtual learning, the cost, there was just less cost being incurred by the district. Busing costs were less, utility costs were less, just building costs were less. So a lot of the expenses that take to run a school district were, pretty significantly reduced when working in a remote environment, certainly.
Okay, sometimes when you see a graph like that and there is such a significant change in one data point, it can be a red flag for things. So I wanted to just make sure I understood that. I know that at the beginning of the presentation, you said that that this was rendered an unmodified clean opinion. And I think that I want to echo what Treasurer Gerby just said, that I feel the utmost confidence. In fact, I feel like maybe it exceeds even what I can even explain here, my confidence in our Director of Finance, Miranda Owsley. And I appreciate, I'm not even on finance, but I have learned so much from her presentations and from the knowledge that she shares with us about school finance. And I have I just feel confident that our budget is responsible. I feel that when we have to make amendments or changes to the budget because of an increase or a decrease in funding, that we're making the best choices with students in mind. And so I just appreciate the work that you do and the work that you go above and beyond to do so that we and our community are informed, and not just informed, but the way that you present things makes it really easy for all of us to understand. So thank you for your work.
I guess I do have one question. I wanted to get your opinion or your thoughts on something. And again, it's your opinion. This past year, inflation has been a significant thing for schools, right? And for just life in general. Do you anticipate that we need to maintain, do you have a prediction on a Plant Moran about inflation and how we should feel about that going forward?
So I don't personally have a prediction on inflation. I'm unfortunately not an economist, but I would say that if you look back, so when Proposal A was implemented back in 1994, the Per Pupil Foundation has clearly not kept pace with inflation. It's been well under inflation really since the beginning. And I talked about some of the significant increases that there have been in the last couple of years in the foundation allowance. So for example, from 2022 to 2023, you're going to have a foundation allowance increase about $450 per pupil. For this last year, it went up $567 per pupil, which sounds great, but that's a 6.9% increase. And so the largest increase since the implementation of Proposal A, it's still under the rate of inflation. And so that's really the challenge schools have faced, is that Proposal A and the Per Pupil Foundation has never kept pace with the rate of inflation. So unfortunately, I don't know where inflation is going to go, but I do know that the funding schools have received has not kept pace.
Official recommendation from your side, you're saying, on what we should think about that?
Yeah,
okay.
Correct.
I'm not asking if it's
yeah. No, it's a great question, but yeah, I mean, so there are lots of factors obviously that go into it, and it certainly is a challenge for everybody. But unfortunately, I don't have a prediction for it. But it is a good question. But I apologize. I don't have any indicators, unfortunately.
I did appreciate that deep in your report in a couple of places there were nods toward inflation. This is something we're keeping an eye on, so I appreciate that. And speaking of that, I also want to just reiterate, Treasurer Gerby, this is one, you talk about the committee being, Finance Committee, Financial Oversight Committee being proactive. I mean, this is the very function of having a committee, so we can anticipate these things coming around the corner, do some future casting, forecasting, and that's great. So I have a question. I'm going to make it real easy, I hope. You had said, I'm going to throw your words at you, you said, gently, you said, keep an eye on this number, the fund balance. Well, we know the number goes up and down as various things change throughout the year. So my question is there an optimal time to check in on the fund balance, like time of year? Or is it one of those things when you say keep an eye, you mean every year around June 30th, keep an eye? Or?
Well, certainly every year on June 30th, because that's when you have the full closed financial picture of where the district ended up. And then it really just, it becomes part of the budgeting process. And so again, we talked about how it goes up and down, and having a 15% fund balance certainly helps deal with inflationary pressures. Again, it gives the district the ability to take more of a longer term view in dealing with some financial challenges. But really, as you're thinking about the budget, obviously, that what impacts fund balance is, revenues over expenditures or expenditures over revenues. And so in the budgeting process, and the finance team does a great job of getting really close on the budget. You probably saw in the documents, we do present a budget to actual statement, which is typically within a couple percent of the actual. So again, you have to make meaningful decisions. I mean, it's not just about fund balance, but it's a consideration, I would say. And so as you're going through the budget adoption process, it's a good time to check in and see, are we adding or are we subtracting to fund balance, and what impact might that have on our financial reserves?
But it's nothing we should really be bugging our chief financial officer about every 2 weeks. This is June 30th is. Oh, good, thank you. The next thing, I don't know if you know this, and maybe Superintendent Lodge knows, the student counts were formulaic the last 2 years, 90, 10, I think. Is our student count going forward going to be just October? Versus a blended, a formulaic blended,
As far as we know, right? I haven't heard that they're going to go back.
Yeah, it is back to so they had what they called the super blend during the pandemic years. Now they're back to the normal blending, which is 10% of the February count, 90% of.
Oh, that's the normal. That wasn't the
that
super
was the
blend.
standard count, and then the super blend. I can't.
Oh, not.
Yeah.
Right. So we're back to
Yeah, you're back to
Stability.
90,
All right,
10,
I think,
yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. The only comment I would make is thank you for doing this on another clean report. Congratulations, Miranda. On the finance team, we did talk about getting past this audit and getting past our bond this evening, and I look forward to discussing revenue generation on a future agenda in December and watching that number. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Moving on to our action items for this evening, I'd like to please entertain a motion to accept the audit report as submitted by Assistant Superintendent Miranda Owsley.
I'll make the motion. Kirby.
Brad, thank you.
Support, ESTEP.
Susan, thank you. Any discussion? I think we just had it. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 7-0. I'd like to next please entertain a motion and move to approve the minutes from the October 25th, 2022 closed session for the purpose of discussions of superintendent evaluation under Section 8A of the Open Meetings Act. Oh, you got to make the motion first. That's okay.
I'll do it.
All right,
So moved. Jones.
Candace, thank you.
Mhm. Second, Miller.
Jenny, thank you. Okay. All right. Now, if we can go ahead, Candace, and as you all have seen in the past, when we have, according to the Open Meetings Act, when we have closed session, we do the minutes in a particular way. Secretary Jones passes out 7 copies that are numbered. We will take a minute to just read those when we're ready. Thanks. She will collect them back, shred them all except for 1 copy, which goes in a sealed envelope to Betty Yankee, if approved. So we'll just take a minute to read. Okay, any questions for Secretary Jones? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 7-0. Moving on to our only discussion item of this evening, Vice President McCafe, policy 0144.1, compensation.
Compensation, that refers in this case to the Board of Education's compensation. We had a light discussion about this as sort of blended into my report from the policy committee the last time. But in order to do this properly and formally, this is our official discussion. Let me just tell you where we landed on this, and I guess I could entertain a proposal to accept this at the next meeting and vote on it at the next meeting. So here's the key line. There are 2 elements. Let me do the second one first. If you're looking at it, it's on page 87 of the packet. In section D, we struck out, and the policy committee struck out a number of sections which specified what we get compensated for when we're going on travel, and we thought that was unnecessarily detailed. The other part that we discussed here at the table, and I am going to recommend when we draft up the new policy, is to remove a line. So if you could draw your eyes to the very first line, Board members shall receive not more than $30 per meeting up to a total of not more than 52 meetings, and then in brackets it says including committee meetings, as compensation for their services. What we in the policy committee determined would be the best way moving forward would be to remove the term including committee meetings. So that means that we will only be compensated at $30 for each of our formally posted meetings of the full board. I think that was the intent that we saw. So if anyone has any language suggestions for this that we can put into a recommendation for action at the next meeting, I'd love to hear them now, and we'll move on. And I'll just open the floor to the discussion on this, if there are questions.
Oh, yes. And another thing that I, brought up and that was discussed was, and I know we discussed it here at the table about the $30 and whether we wanted to change that. And I know there was some conversation like, oh, we don't do this for the money and all of that. But I wanted to, I'm not suggesting that we change that, but I just wanted to be mindful for maybe future board members or even currently who may, for example, use that money for childcare or, you know, while they're here at the meeting or, so I just don't, we're like, yeah, like, oh, we don't need this. I just want to be mindful of those conversations and not take necessarily a privileged perspective and just kind of, I mean, I guess just thinking about these things moving forward, it just kind of something that came across my mind and just wanted to point out.
Thank you.
To that point, has the committee done any benchmarking of what other districts around compensate their board members?
We all appear to be at $30 per meeting. In fact, the WISD board of 5 cannot go over that by law, cannot go over $30. So I think the rest of the districts decided to just lockstep and what do we tie bar our compensation with that. So thank you.
But with that said, there are places in the country that vary a lot, and so I do think that we are benchmarked with our county counterparts, and probably as Vice President McVeigh said, because of that county initiative. But yeah, it does vary in different places, but it seems to be within our region the norm.
I think it's safest to compare us with other districts within Washtenaw County. I believe I heard, and the number I shared was $120,000 for a trustee salary at Los Angeles Unified School District, $35,000 at DeKalb County in Georgia. I think all that money goes right into their political campaigns anyway to run for the seat, but that's how they're compensated. It's a different nature of job in those cases. So.
I also just wanted to say that, you know, we do spend a lot of time talking about budget, as we just did tonight. And so in thinking about, for me anyways, in thinking about an increase to compensation or changing the compensation model to include additional meetings, it would impact the amount of money that is in the budget for students potentially. And so when weighing those things, it felt like a responsible choice. But I also want to acknowledge that $30 for a meeting that can last from 6:30 to 10:30 is not going to cover the cost of childcare. So I do understand that can, you know, play a significant role in someone's ability to participate in these things. So I do think it is something to keep in mind.
And if we could also add, this district is extraordinarily generous when it comes to our professional development through MASB and even the occasional trip to Washington, D.C. for the National School Boards Association and paying for hotel accommodation and mileage to the annual leadership conferences, the annual one, and there are 4 throughout the year. So I've been to 1 or 2 in the summer. So, yeah, so we're very grateful to the district, and just to Dr. Lotch's credit, he has never wavered in his support for professional development of his boards.
Allison, why don't you go ahead?
I was just going to ask, I know we talked a little bit about the precedent regarding the salary in other schools around the district, but I was wondering if there was a precedent regarding compensation specifically for the committee meetings, and if we if we were to eliminate compensation for that meetings. I was just curious how other districts have gone about that.
That is a ball that I believe has been dropped. However, and I appreciate the question. So, Allison, I could easily do a quick phone around to the other districts to see if they compensate for the committees, because we board members have these vast networks, so we can talk to the other boards and get that information to you all pretty quickly. Now, if it turns out that we're the outlier, then we're the outlier, and we're just going to go for the full board meetings and compensation, and others will have to look to us, possibly.
So I had a thought about that piece. So are you, so I know last time as well, we had talked about, you know, if one person has a committee or serving as a board rep, for example, and has like 2 meetings a month, and then another one has like, you know, 2 meetings a year, like, you know, there's like that equitable piece or whatever. So it's like too confusing. And you're a rep as well, right? Are we thinking about, so like our regular board committees, not covering those? So for example, finance, the committee, and we haven't?
We haven't since I've been on. I don't know, Michael, you have 2 years on me.
6 years, we've never compensated for small standing committees, like finance or the policy.
Okay, so, and I know for the superintendent search and everything, we did get compensated for those.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Full board meetings.
Okay.
And
So
we might
because there were
And
special
emergency
posted.
meetings.
We might
Yeah.
even check with,
Yep.
and you know, and you haven't been to any disciplinary meetings since you've been on board, I don't believe, Trustee Miller. We could check with Recording Secretary Yankee. Did we get compensated for that 15-minute emergency meeting? Yes, okay. Because it was called as a full board meeting, it was open to the public, and we all came. Right.
And I know we do
Thank you.
post our small committee meetings publicly, so technically it could be a full board. I mean, we can all technically show up to those committees and be able to vote because it's posted that way. And we don't, right? Go to those committees and do that, but because we post those, it is OMA compliant because it's posted publicly. So I could say, hey, you know, finance, show up.
If I could address the question that you raised of equity, somebody could actually go to all of the board meetings, the 20 now, and attend two committee meetings a month, but the magic number is 52. They're only compensated for a maximum of 52. So you can do the arithmetic. Who's the fast arithmeticer out there? 52 times 30. Okay. Anyway. But that's all I can tell you about that right now. Yeah.
I was just going to add that I was comfortable with our discussion last time and the historic trend of being compensated for the full regular board meetings. If there happen to be special meetings, hopefully we won't have another superintendent search. But just keeping with the status quo, and I agree with Jenny about being cognizant of it hitting the budget and affecting students and staff.
So in order to land this plane, I'm getting the sense that I will move forward with drafting this so that it removes that parenthesis language, including committee meetings. And I'll present that to us for something that we can vote on December 13th, 14th, whatever that meeting is. Yeah.
And if you could also ask about the compensation for committee meetings, just in general, so we have that information.
Oh, of course, yeah. And feel free to bring that up in the discussion before we vote on it. And I will have that information by I'll give folks a day to recover from,
Okay.
from today.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so
My apologies.
I'm looking through really quickly, but, so it's per meeting, but then it doesn't, I want to make sure that we put special meeting if, like, because it doesn't really identify what meeting, right? Whenever we take out including committee meetings, it still just says meeting. So I think we may want to specify that piece, like special meetings, emergency meetings, regular meetings, some kind of language with that.
If I added just the word full, 52 full board meetings. I mean, we could specify emergency and et cetera, but at any time, I think this covers all of those cases that could come up, full board meetings. All right, I'm happily adding that language. Thank you.
Yeah, just so the meetings won't be questioned. Does that include committee meetings? Because that's probably come up, right?
And there is actually, OMA does have strict definitions for what is a meeting. So, posted, et cetera, and we've sort of talked about that. So we're understanding that we're using the formal definition of a meeting, right?
But that wouldn't include, even though we post, and we're not necessarily required, right, with those small committees. I think that's why specific is good, too.
I'm hearing you say, that I should add language about emergency meetings? Yes, and
Well, if we're gonna treat the committee meetings as how we post it, as if in a regular meeting, like how that looks, I think we should clarify. Other people could chime in. I think I've already made my point, so.
I like the word full, because committee meetings, finance or policy, are not a full meeting of the board.
We call it standing committee meetings.
That's right.
So full board meetings, remove that language that says including committee meetings, which I believe, Recording Secretary Yonke's already on it, right? All right, and we'll review that tomorrow, and I will do my homework and forward that information to the rest of you. So,
I just said y'all owe us a lot of money. I'm kidding. Because it's already included there.
All right. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to administration updates, Dr. Latch.
2 quick ones. Thank you, everybody, for voting. We appreciate that. But I also wanted to go back to the audit and, again, thank Miranda, but I also want to give credit to her team surrounding her, who we often don't talk about, and that is Christy Pateri, Ann Rosati, Melanie Moore, and Kara Burgess. And they work closely with Miranda to make sure that it all flows and everybody's got different roles, because it's very, very complex. And so thank you to the entire team.
All right, thank you. Allison?
So again, first and foremost, just thank you for voting, and thank you to everyone who helped set up the voting booths. I know there was one at the high school that ran pretty smoothly. I was there all day and I didn't really notice any disruption at all, and that was very impressive personally. First, there is a craft show on November 12th. I believe it's at the middle school. Historically, that's usually where they are. So if you have time to go visit some local artists, that would be great. Clue was last weekend. Great job to all the cast at Saline High School. I heard it was a really great performance, and I'm always astounded by the lights and by the beautiful theater that we built. So good job to everyone involved with that. I believe that NHS mentioned earlier the Veterans event at the high school, but just for some further information, it is on November 11th. And so veterans are invited to visit, and then there are some communicated tours where they can share their stories with students, and they can answer any questions they have. A huge thank you to everyone who is helping set that up. Just something to keep a lookout on the horizon, the Saline Area Social Services is hosting a fundraiser from November 14th to the 27th at Bush's to raise some food, which is always something that they do a super good job on. And kind of correlation, kind of associated, is that the canned food drive is on December 10th. So if you can start collecting some cans that maybe you're not interested in, that would be great.
Great, thank you very much. Trustees?
All right, go ahead, Brian.
So it's weird to think that at the next meeting we're going to be a little bit of a different team here, and I'm looking at you, Candace, and I want to thank you for me as a trustee for the 2 years that you made a commitment to this team. All right, like I've benefited greatly from having you as a teammate, and I remember reading your resume and thinking like, whoa, U.S. Department of Education, and like I just remember thinking like, boy, we're really going to benefit from you. And we've done important work in the last 2 years and work that we should be proud of. And so I want you to hear from me. Thank you. I really appreciate you. I appreciate I hope you won't be a stranger around here. So.
I wanted to just say a couple of words about Candace also. And I wanted to just note that your commitment to education before you even came to us was astounding to read about. I just thought what a phenomenal resume you brought to us. And we did learn so much from your experience and from your willingness to share your knowledge and expertise with us. But even more than that, I just really have appreciated that you have shared your personal life experience with us so that we can be better. And your advocacy for students, especially Black and brown students in our district, has made has impacted our work here as a board. And I believe that we are moving in a direction that can be more supportive and more responsive to all of our students in working toward creating environments where all of our students feel safe to learn. So I just really want to thank you for the impact that you've had in my own life, but also being a mom of students who attend this district. Your advocacy has impacted my children, and I know many of the children in our school district. So thank you for your service.
Already hugged Candace and told her that I'll probably be awkward, because I am. I'll own it. But since, was it June 2021, you joined us, and I think your first meeting was the policy committee when we were talking about the transgender and non-binary students policy. And yeah, that was interesting to say the least. But I, appreciate how you helped move policies forward and, advocated for making sure all voices were heard and worked like as a great team. And your leadership on the DEI advisory committee as well has been really great. And then, I know I keep hearing in the community that this board doesn't represent them. And, that bothers me because people like you and I haven't been represented, ever. And so I think I talked a little bit about this last time, but, I think the makeup of our committee right now is true representation. Yeah, I just appreciate you. I hope that you will join us on a future committee as, a parent in the district. Yeah, thank you for your support, being a free thinker, not worried about voting against or for something that others don't. I think that I really appreciate that. And yeah, I don't know, it was awkward, but yeah, I'm gonna miss you.
I'm not going to give us a chance to miss you because I'm going to expect to see you at many events and in that respect. I did want to say three things, Candace. One was, thank you so much for your service on this board, even brief though it may have been. You've been in the policy committee. You are a steady and calm voice. moving policies forward. And it's like E.F. Hutton, when Candace speaks, everyone listens. And I also want to say that I'm honored to say that I think we've become friends through this experience, and you and your hubby and your boys. And I gave you a hug when you first came in, and I hope you understood from what I was saying through that hug that I'm really, really, really going to miss you here. So thanks, Candace.
All right. I already thanked you up front, so I won't get into that again. I wanted to actually thank our central administration staff for taking the day off and the hard work that they did at the polls. I got to see Kara at the Sportsman League. I saw Miranda 3 times today. Got to see Rex out there at Saline Township and Jay at the fairgrounds. And Steve, I know you were out there all day, and who knows where Kurt is. I think he's still out there for at least 15 more minutes. It means a whole lot what you do for the students every single day. And just know it wasn't unnoticed today. So thank you very much. Oh, yeah, of course. Anna's still out there, too. Anna's the first person I saw this morning. I saw Anna and Miranda at the church, first thing at precincts 3 and 4 this morning. So that was very, very nice to say. Yeah, Susan, did you have something else?
Yes, I did. So, yeah, about the elections, I appreciate the admin team and, them taking off as well. I know they were Hank, the Liberty dog. Me and my daughter came and visited them, and the energy was great with the admin team, because they're like, oh, we're going to go back out there and, talk to the voters. And so I really appreciated really the whole team and how I got excited whenever I got something in the mail, about the bond, and got a couple phone calls from principals and and how everybody on Twitter shared and everything. And I think it was a wonderful campaign. And then I also want to recognize Native American History Month as well. And there's probably sometimes we miss some of those, everything that's in a month. But, I think it's especially important whenever we, for the month of November, and I hope we celebrate in the schools.
All right. Candace, did you want to say something?
I did. Yes. First, I just want to say thank you all for your vote of confidence in me to serve in this role. It's been an honor and a joy to work with all of you and to learn more about the inner workings of Saline area schools, and has made me, happier and feeling like I made the right choice for my sons. No matter how challenging it's been at times, just recognizing the great education that they are getting, the passion of this community, the engagement of this community, and making sure that we are driving toward more positive outcomes for all of our students. And I really felt that passion and support from the community as well, and appreciated the pushback at times, so that we can get better. I look forward to that continuing to happen, that discourse continuing to happen over the years, and we'll definitely be engaged in the community. I'm going to be traveling a lot more for work. I'm actually co-leading an educational equity center that serves 13 states and 3 territories. So it's going to be a lot of work and some travel, but I'm excited about that, but still want to be able to support the work that's happening here. So looking forward to that. I'm thankful for all of the candidates that stepped forward and said, yes, I want to do this work, because it's not easy, it's time intensive. And so I just wish you all the best and hope that you stay engaged regardless of the outcome for tonight. I think that's it. Betty, I want to say thank you. Just all the support. She's amazing and just been great to work with. And everyone, as well as all of you. So look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks, Candace. Moving on to our consent agenda, the following are offered as part of our consent agenda. The motion noted will allow for the authorization of all listed items without discussion unless a member of the board requests that any one or all be considered individually. These items will not be read aloud, but will continue to be listed out individually in the minutes for this meeting. I'd like to please entertain a motion and move to authorize the listed items as part of our consent agenda.
So moved, McVeigh.
Michael, thank you.
Candace.
Go, Candace.
Support, Jones.
Candace, second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 7-0. Item scheduled on our next agenda, Dr. Lodge.
Yeah, the main item for the December meeting is a teaching and learning presentation, more specifically, continuous learning update.
All right, thank you very much. Now is our second opportunity for public comment. We do have one form. Catherine Kelly, parent, if you'd like to approach and make sure same rules apply, you know what they are, and just make sure the green light is on whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My words might sound redundant after all the thank yous, but I literally signed up for public comment to say thank you. Although these are my words, I think that my words reflect the majority of parents in Saline who are too busy to come frequently to board meetings. But I do want to share my thoughts and my feelings of gratitude, not just to the board members, but to the administration, or people like Miranda, and all the people who, over the last 22 years that we've been here, have been available to us. I haven't always agreed with things that have happened. I haven't always been happy, but I always felt like I had a place to go. I had resources, and I didn't realize you only got paid. I didn't even think about being compensated for what your job is. And now finding out that it's $30 a meeting, I thank you even more. But I just want each one of you, Candace, I'm sorry that you're leaving, but I do want to say thank you for what you do for our kids and our community, and you make a big, big difference, and you don't get to hear it often enough. So I signed up to say thank you, but it seems like it's the season of thanks. So thank you.
Thank you. had to say thank you for the thank yous. Our next meeting, the next meeting of the Saline Area Schools Board of Education will be held here on December 13th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to now please entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Education meeting of November 8th, 2022 at 7:52 p.m. Candace, you want to take it?
Do it again, Candace. So moved, Jones.
Candace, thank you.
Support. Go ahead. Nope, Susan, you go ahead.
I will support. I guess we all can support.
All right, Susan, thank you. Goodbye, Candace. We are adjourned.